The title of this video, everything is getting worse.
This is Steve Moore from the Committee to Unleash.
Oh, God. I'm sorry. He's right. The faces I'm having to look at on Fox News, things are getting worse. What is this set? Where is he?
Prosperity and Freedom Works. Steve, great to see you. Who the hell?
I'm sorry. I'm enjoying, like, this is the guy who started Freedom Works. Look how miserable he looks. And look how disappointed, very disappointed, this guy is. And look at the stock market now. It's down 90 points right now. But look at the number that it's at. It's down 90 points to 36,398.47. And this is the last day of trading. I'm guessing, this is the last night. So there's still a day of trading today.
This analyst, Steve. I mean, I know this administration is always claiming that everybody who's ever won an economic Nobel Prize supports his BBB plan, et cetera. But I haven't found one analyst saying that this.
Yeah, I'm wandering around Fox amongst our vaccinated people who pretend vaccines are terrible. I haven't run into one analyst here at Fox Business who will go on the air and call bullshit.
The strongest economy in 50 years. Have you?
Well, it might be. I've been scratching my head trying to think of who that might have been, David. And
I'll step in. Can I step in? And can I at least give you an idea of where they might be coming from with this? Can I just maybe let's see. One of the reasons why they're saying this right about now, where the 50-year word might come from. Maybe this one. Unemployment benefits is proof that the U.S. jobs recovery is still in full swing. The average number of weekly jobless benefits claims over the past 4 weeks fell to 199,250. That's the lowest 4-week moving average since October 1969, the Labor Department reported Thursday. Last week alone, claims stood at 198,000, adjusted for seasonal swings. That was slightly less than economists had predicted, but above the pandemic-era low. The number of continued claims, counting workers who have applied for benefits for at least 2 consecutive weeks, stood at 1.7 million in the week ending December 18th, the lowest level since March 2020. All these data points are undeniable signs of strength in the labor market. Now, granted, these two assholes, the worst words, besides Reagan's, I'm from the government and I'm here to help you, the fucking worst words in their lives are strength in the labor market. Strength in the labor market is fucking terrifying to these dipshits. When people can negotiate even an extra fucking nickel at work, it's a nightmare. So of course he thinks it's terrible. So let's just understand that everything that they say is terrible is something that normal humans would be celebrating. By the way, that's where that 50-year number came from. That's why that analyst, that's why the White House came out and said this, which is true.
take a guess of who the president might be referring to, and he's on a different network from yours. Jimmy Cramer.
It could be Jimmy Cramer, or it could just be, quite frankly, the fucking facts. This is Anakin Tapp who wrote this. This would be according to the Labor Department. This seasonally adjusted, that looks pretty good. January to December. I'm just saying, these are the kind of unemployment charts you want to see. Welcome to Joe Biden's presidency, you fucking bastards. Look at this. It's all this leading from behind that Biden is doing. This is why Putin and Xi Jinping are looking at Biden. They're laughing at him right now. This is oh wait, I want to see, maybe I can find something. Hold on one second. I feel like I should be able to. Hold on. Let's see. Yeah, not so good. There's the unemployment 2020, and then definitely came down. Definitely going back to work because of that. But they're basically unemployment numbers. They're not. Yeah, they're about back to 2017. This, of course, they're reported numbers. Wink, wink. Look here, everyone knows working, and then there's and then we're back to where we were. Yeah, it's all well.
CNBC has been on this rant about how wonderful the economy is. But I mean, look, you just look at the statistic. By the way, it is a good jobs market, no question about it. The jobs market.
Yeah. He's right. But, he's on the other side, so we can't allow that to happen.
Right.
Is really strong
because
right
of demand.
Now. But you look at these other factors. Pardon?
Because of demand. Because
Steve Moore went to New Trier. So did so did Adam Baldwin. We differ on some things.
The demand unleashing the prosperity.
Exactly.
The people want to buy stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, but with what? Oh, right. They've got money in their fucking pocket. Money that you were complaining about people printing, and that money is feeding the economy. And in the last 10 months, and largely because of COVID, but also because of the strength of the U.S. economy and the swiftness of our recovery and the ability of the Biden administration to pass an infrastructure bill and the biggest rescue package in history, that now China is not set to they were set to overcome our economy and become the biggest economy in the world in 2024. A scant 2 years from now, when Trump is allegedly going to run again. And now it's going to take them to 2030 if they ever do, which is very questionable.
Yeah, it's the free money. It's the funny, what I call the funny money.
Yeah, it's not free money. It's a bailout for individuals instead of banks. It's the equivalent of what happened in 2008, but on a cash-to-cash basis with individuals, which requires more money to get through there as opposed to trickle-down money through loans, which is what you did in 2008. And in the same way that this gets back into the economy, people pay taxes on the money that they've made, which is sort of a form of interest that they pay on the money that they're taking in. That the same thing happens. The Fed will ultimately make money on the rescue package. Mark my words. Put a fucking flag in the ground.
Washington is just pouring into the economy right now, and it's like you go on a drinking binge, David.
No, it isn't. It's like you've been walking in a fucking desert, and you have seen a couple of mirages, and then you finally reach water when you are nearly dehydrated. And then you get a lot of water and you take that water in. And then you stick with that water for a little while longer so that you can get fully hydrated. And then you get the fuck up and start walking again.
You never do that, but I do. And you drink and it feels...
We know you both do.
Great, and then the next morning, bang, you can't get out of bed in the morning. Right. I worry about 2022. Yeah. I do think that there's going to be a debt hangover effect, and the big variable right now is something, we've talked about. I've talked to Larry Kudlow about this on this show many times, and that is the...
Yeah, but Kudlow was in the last administration and screwed the pooch. Kudlow is selling something, and he's dumb. What the fuck is that supposed to... Oh shit. My goodness. Dear Lord. You didn't mention you spoke to Larry Kudlow. Was it... No wonder... It's curious. You just brought up binge drinking and then Larry Kudlow. Coincidence? I think not.
Of are we going to pour gasoline on this fire of inflation by passing some version of the big Build Back Better bill? I certainly hope we don't.
Well,
but
Steve,
look at the other factors.
Steve, hold on a second. Let's just start.
Prices.
Let's just start with inflation, because I want to pick on these one by one. Yeah. Inflation, 60. Okay, the president may not think it's causing a halt in any kind of economic progress, but Americans do. 67% of Americans.
Yeah, because they've been bullshitted about this. And this is a Fox News poll of registered voters, December 11th, 14th. Has inflation caused you financial hardship over the last 6 months? Yes. So fucking what? Ask anybody on the earth that. And by the way, if you added, has the supply shock caused inflation? caused you financial hardship over the last 6 months? Also, by the way, may I, if I may, because I know they were going to bring up inflation as well. This is Kiplinger. Now, there's a couple of reasons why this is true. We'll get to this in a second, but I just want to show you this. Okay, here we go. A slight easing of gasoline prices in December should keep your year-end 2021 inflation just barely below 7%. At 6.9% inflation, by the way, year over year, from a year when stuff was below zero in some cases. So, yeah, is it up? Yeah. Is it up compared to 2019 spectacularly? No. It's up about 4.3% from 2019, even with a fucking pandemic. Inflation will be at its highest in almost 40 years, but expect inflation to ease in 2022 because inflation is not at its highest. It's at its highest jump in almost 40 years, not its highest amount. Percentage based on the year before. And again, the last time it was this high, the year before, we didn't have a fucking pandemic. They had a 14% rise in inflation, and and in 82 and in 81, we did not have a pandemic. We did not have a complete shutdown. Nobody was like fucking scrambling to get PPE and duct taping fucking diapers to their face so they could go shop for groceries. But expect inflation to ease in 2022, well, especially year over year, because if you artificially inflate it because it was artificially low the year before, next year it's going to look even smaller. It's going to be like, by the time this time of the year rolls around, compared to this year, inflation's going to be up, down 2% or some shit. As supply shortages get better or end, and again, that's 100% the reason behind this is supply shock and gas prices have everything to do with the fact that the economy shut down and refineries were shut down and transportation was shut down. Like we all lived through this. Can we not pretend that we weren't just in a pandemic, for fuck's sake? And that oil companies don't give a shit about you or me or anybody else, and they want to make up for the profits they lost. And the countries that rely on gas and oil, the United States likes it. I mean, it's good for our economy. It adds something. But the Russians fucking need it, and the Saudis are dead without it. There's a bunch of South American countries as well that if that is literally all they have. And without jacking that price back up to make up for the lost revenue, their countries and their people are fucked. Okay, here we go. Higher inflation in the near term is likely to get the Federal Reserve to start raising short-term interest rates. We've seen this. They're going to tighten this instead of waiting till the fall next year. That's true. We already said that. They accelerated that part. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, now I got to pay to keep reading. But that's essentially it. This isn't fucking CNBC. This is Kiplinger. All of the financial people behind the scenes. I mean, this is effectively like a pump and dump scheme. They're trying to panic the market so that all the retail investors go, oh fuck, and pull their money out of the, it's going to crash. It's going to crash the fucking stock market. Stock market's going to crash. So that they, the retail investors pull their fucking money out, and then they can taking that money out will artificially deflate the market for a time. And then they can buy the dip and ride it back up because that's how they fucking make money. Because they don't invest in anything. They don't realize that most retail investors are long-term investors who actually like the companies and think, wow, in 50 years, this company's going to be something, and I can sell my stock to somebody else who will want it for thousands of dollars, perhaps.
Say that it has caused hardships over the last 6 months. So most Americans, twice as many, by the way, think that Biden is making it worse rather than making it better, and twice.
Yeah, can you show me your question, how you phrased that question in your poll, dum-dum?
Many people think that the Build Back Better monstrosity.
On getting inflation under control, Biden's actions are hurting, helping, no difference. Look at this. 2 plus 2 is 4, and 8 plus 2 is 10. So 50% of people think he's helping or making no difference. It's not going to harm or hurt it. It's just the reality. This is it doesn't really affect anything. This is, oh yeah, spending this money is actually helping get inflation because he's doing other shit to deal with gas prices. So 47. This look like here's Democrats and independents, and here's Republicans. That's what this is. And it's a fucking Fox poll. Fox Business did this poll, and 50% of the people polled went, it's not his fault or he's doing better. You prick ya.
Is going to make inflation worse instead of better, as the president says. So the public is not buying what the president says. He's not making.
Apparently they are. And by the way, plus or minus 3%. And because they're full of shit, I'm just going to assume this is really 44%. And the other 3% go the other direction to helping or making no difference. Did you ask a question about what do you know about inflation? What's the current drivers of inflation? Is it? We're gonna ask you this real quick. Is it gas and used cars, or is it eggs? What do you think? What do you think is the main thing that's driving it?
Sale with the public.
That's for sure. And in fact, it's not just
Totally.
on inflation. Those polls show the same thing on the economy generally. There's a sense of real unease among the public about what we're doing. I mean, the American people.
Really? There's a sense of unease about it that has nothing to do with Omicron and will the country get back on its feet and will we have to have lockdowns and are we going to be fine and how's it going to get out and all the other shit we're going through. Never mind. By the way, if the unease exists and if it is not backed up by the data, is it not the media's fault for causing that unease? Because what you have on this show right now are two assholes who are arguing against the facts but for the feelings. And how many times have we heard Republicans go, fuck, facts don't care about your feelings, fuck your feelings, right? Isn't that like, minus the swear word, one of Ben Shapiro's, isn't that his tramp stamp? Right? Both of these assholes are arguing against the facts. That's what they're doing. They literally are going, the public is upset about this in the Fox poll, in our leading Fox poll, even though 50% of the people in the last chart that they showed think that it's either not Biden's fault or there's nothing he can do about it or there's nothing to be done about it or he's doing everything he can and it's actually making it better. Versus the Republicans, you asked.
Get it, that you can't just keep spending and spending and borrowing and taxing and thinking that.
Which is not what they're doing at all. I mean, I posted a video earlier. Steve Van Meter, I don't agree with everything he says, but his explanation of the mechanics of the bond market and how money is made and how money is created is spot on. And the idea that we're printing money all the time, they're just printing this money. They're printing it. Especially when half of the shit they're talking about as far as projects go, they're either grants or loans. The loans get paid back with interest. Even if it's a little interest, it's still not negative.
Story's going to have a happy ending. And you look at the idea that somehow the inflation is getting better, and it's not. It's getting worse. Look at the.
No, it's actually getting better. Look at what? Sorry, hold on. Look at gas prices. What? And by the way, when is this? Is this New Jersey where it's always expensive?
Producer price index that just came out a couple of weeks ago, David. Those numbers are getting worse, not better.
Almost double digits.
Sorry, hold on. Sorry, the what price index?
Is getting better, and it's not. It's borrowing and taxing and thinking that story is going to have a happy ending. And you look at the idea that somehow the inflation is getting better, and it's not. It's getting worse. Look at the producer price index that just came out a couple of weeks.
There it is. Remember we looked at the producer price index 2 weeks ago. This is when the consumer price index was kicking their ass. So they went like, but the PPI, they're getting the stuff, blah, 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 blah. This is the, here we go. Hold on one second. This is, we looked at this before. This is the producer price index. Let's see. It is, let's see, here you go. For final demand advances, 0.8% in November, services rise 0.7%, goods increase 1.2%. By the way, the goods part is what they're really trying to make you think is the worst part of it, and it's the smallest part of it. The PPI has a lot to do with services. What that means is they're trying to use the PPI because in the PPI is the raise in wages that the service industry employees are starting to get. That's what's bringing the PPI up. The people that work for you or the people that wait tables and all that kind of shit, they're finally seeing a nudge up in their wages, which is giving them more money to spend out in the world through their work, by the way, through their labor. But that raises the PPI. And the PPI, the idea is that if the PPI goes up, then they have to translate that cost. And, they have to, move that onto their clients, which is not true at all, especially when it's in minor increments like this. Like the big story is the Dollar General store is going to become a $1.25 store, or the Five Below is going to be just Five Above, or some shit like this. And the picture of the $4 gasoline is either from the highest place in New York City, which is, New York's always got higher gasoline because they have to bring it onto the island and it's a pain in the ass. They don't have a pipeline that goes in because they shouldn't, because it's lunacy. But anyways, the PPI is the way they were trying to look. So the news stories on this were, let's see. We looked at this before. Recalculate season just factor relative interim index values to 3 decimal. Okay, this is just this is the deep reads news on this. But this was news a couple of weeks ago because the CPI, when people looked at the CPI, the consumer price index, you see obviously that gas and used cars were fucking the entire equation. And that, it wasn't that eggs and milk and all that kind of shit and fucking burritos at Taco Bell were going through the roof at all. It was a transportation issue because of supply chain shock. Initially, there was no stuff being made and people were ordering it, so the boats sat idle. Now there's a lot of shit being made again and a lot of people waiting for that stuff, want it really fast, and so you could charge more for the shipping, and the fuel costs went up at the same time because people are starting to move again. And they know this, and this is bullshit. I'm just saying.
Go, David. Those numbers are getting worse, not better.
Almost double digits. It was 9.6%.
Yep. That's right.
Almost double digits in percentage change since last year when no one was working, and the PPI includes service workers. What would be, think about this for a fucking second. This drives me nuts. Think about this for a second. What is the difference between restaurants this year and restaurants last year? As far as the number of employees needed or working in those places. What about casinos, cruise ships? What about factory floors, meat processing plants? What's the difference between those places this year and those places last year? Now remember, the PPI, a third of it approximately, is the actual cost of the workers. Now, what do you think the percentage difference is? Fucking hell. Between what restaurants were paying their workers, employees, to get what food they could sell out, because it's all relative also to what's going out the door. So you had 4 cooks, you have 3 cooks now, last year, because you don't have one that works the window, right? And you've got drivers. And fewer drivers at that. Some drivers making multiple routes. And they don't work for the restaurant. So they're not part of that. They're they're working for Postmates, like they're working for Uber Eats or something like that. So they're technically off the corporate grid in that regard. And the fact that there's almost a 10% difference year over year from 2020 to 2021, God damn it. Like how do they even pretend? You literally have to pretend that 2020 never fucking happened. And again, the PPI, as I was just showing you, includes, and this is the rise per month. See this service rise 0.7%? That's the cost of more people going back to work and them needing to hire more people and them needing to pay $1 more per employee or giving out fucking bonuses. That's per month, about 0.7%. That's what's driving that up. And a third of this is service. There were no waiters working at all in 2020. None. I honestly, like, how do they fucking not, what? Who is this dumb that they buy this shit? Fucking hell. Thank you. I appreciate you, appreciating my work, Kevin. We're just going to pretend that restaurants were open in 2020. We're just going to pretend that fucking casinos weren't boarded up. We're just going to pretend that boats were going back and forth across the fucking ocean, that trains were operating. We're just going to pretend that airports were open nonstop. And the fact that there's only a 10% difference speaks to a resilience in the American economy that's just fucking extraordinary. But also, that PPI, that 10% difference from last year, is relative to the amount of output. So, by percentage, the service amount for last year was way down, but the kitchen output and the delivery output was way higher. But they don't track the delivery part of it, so it looks like every restaurant went from 20 employees to 4. And now they went back to 8 or some shit, or 16 at some point, and then, Delta, and then we were fluctuating back and forth. He knows this, he knows this. This is fucking bullshit. It's so aggravating. Like, oh, God. And the most aggravating thing is that this is just dumb. This is so obviously dumb. And look how sapped out this fucker looks. It's almost 10% difference from last year. What else is almost 10% different from last fucking year?
So the bottom line here is that inflation is bad, but meanwhile, inflation is growing, but the GDP is not. We had the third quarter GDP numbers come out, and it slowed down. Second quarter, 6.7. That was.
Anybody, I don't have to dive into this one. This is easy. Second quarter, third quarter. Which quarter is affected by the Delta variant? Guess. Anybody? Anybody want to just put you want to flip a fucking coin? I don't even have to dive into this one. Anybody? Anybody want to guess which quarter the Delta variant hit? What Delta variant? That didn't happen. The Delta variant didn't drive us back to. Okay.
Robust post-pandemic, if you can call it that, post-pandemic era. But then in the third quarter, it came down to 2.3%. That's less than half of what inflation.
No, and by the way, it's not less than half. That was the rise for the quarter. It's annualized. That's it. We had a 6.7% growth in the second quarter. In the second quarter. You know, when Biden got his emergency rescue package passed and people started going back to work and we started vaccinating people, hand over fucking fist, and then Delta came out. And it was quarter three didn't go up 2.3%. And inflation, this isn't stacked. We're not at fucking 10% inflation, you dick.
So the American economy right now is underwater, Steve.
No, it is not. It is up. It's up.
It is, and you know what's underwater too is wages. So the president boasted a few weeks ago about I think it was about 4.3% wage growth. Yeah, that's a great number during normal times. A really good number.
Mm. Mm. Did they just? How did? What? Did they just not look? Fucking hell. I guess when you're all in on the end of the world, like, what do you do? Look at this. Workers have been pushing to earn at least $15 an hour since 2012, but recent pay hikes and higher inflation mean that the benchmark could be changing. Activists are beginning to push for wages higher than $15 an hour as well, citing inflation and the cost of basic needs. Yeah, well, using that because they're always going to want to punch it higher, and bless their hearts. But most of the states are already going for this. It's a milestone fast food has been trying to achieve since 2012, but anti-poverty activists aren't satisfied, citing the state's high cost of living and rising inflation. They're pushing for more. It's not rising; it's relatively stagnant, but it's a good storyline. Activist and investor Joe Sandberg is financing the attempt to gather enough signatures in California to get a ballot initiative in front of potential running for president. Once the state's minimum wage hit $18 an hour for all businesses by 2026, they're probably going to by already. And again, all that does is drive up the middle management of salaries. That's why they push back on it.
But not when you have 6.7% inflation. It means people's pay.
Wages are permanent. Inflation is not. Year-over-year inflation versus in actual wage growth, not the same metric.
Are shrinking because of the inflation effect. But let's not forget, David, you and I are old enough to remember what happened in the early 1980s after we had the massive.
Oh, God. This is all Carter's fault. We're going to go back to Carter. By the way, does anybody remember the Carter pandemic? What about the Reagan pandemic after he was shot and we all caught bullet?
You know, the Nixon-Ford-Carter inflation. And remember what happened.
The Nixon-Ford-Carter inflation. Yeah, the recession that happened under Reagan, both of them weren't his fault. It's basically, even the ones that started under Nixon were Carter's fault.
When Paul Volcker had to slam the brakes on that money supply, it caused a gut-wrenching. Remember that recession was the worst ever. Yeah. And I just don't want to see that repeated.
Well, you know,
I'm sorry, wait.
Volcker had to slam the brakes on that money supply. It caused a gut-wrenching. Remember that recession was the worst.
Sorry, run that by me again.
Carter inflation. And remember what happened when Paul Volcker had to slam the brakes on that money supply. It caused a gut.
You mean they were printing money and they stopped printing money on a dime because it was all just fucked up monetary policy because of Nixon shifting from the gold standard and nobody knew how to run it yet? You mean shit that happened before cell phones and personal computers? And when televisions had remote controls that made an audible clicking noise? When flat screen TVs didn't exist? You mean then? You mean that kind of monetary policy? You mean monetary policy when we had the biggest economy in the world and it was somewhere in the order of like $750 billion for our whole fucking economy? You mean that during that time, that terrible recession, back when no, there are no day traders to speak of that worked out of their home. Nobody was there were no retail investing. E-Trade didn't exist. Fucking IRAs weren't in mass use. Like, do you remember the Great Recession when the fucking Pilgrims ran out of corn? Why aren't we using that as a reference? Flat screens existed in Kodak Labs in Rochester, New York. Touche, Ibrahim. There you go. They did not exist in everyone's house for $300.
Remember that recession was the worst ever, and I just don't want to see that repeated.
Well, you know,
yeah. Tell you what. Well, I guarantee you one thing: we're not going to repeat the year 1982. As much as I might like it, and as much as the video games kicked ass, I do prefer not having to carry around a giant bag of tokens like an elf with a bag full of gold coins just to play Zaxxon. So there is an upside. Shit.
A lot of people, including my late editor of the Wall Street Journal, Bob Bartley, thought that recession, maybe it couldn't have been avoided, but it could have been ameliorated some if the tax cuts had kicked in earlier.
That's true.
Oh, what a shocking thought that a Fox economist was schooled by a guy who believed that all inflationary issues could have been solved by tax cuts in the 80s.
What really turned it around was the tax cuts came in. Then we started having lower inflation, very high growth of 1 year. I think it was 84 was over 7% growth. So
weird. It was like, imagine that. Think about that for a second. 1 year we had 7% growth. After a year where we had almost negative 1%, where we are in a recession. It's almost as if year over year, 7% in that situation is nothing to crow about except for the fact that you, like, fucking hell, this is like, I'm a mountain climber. How do you prove it? I climbed out of a hole. Is there a difference, ladies and gentlemen, between climbing to the top of Everest and climbing out of the Grand Canyon as far as your view of the earth? Any intrinsic difference? I mean, you're both climbing, right? How about this? Try hang gliding from where you are at that point. Right? Shit. Oh, God.
Yeah,
we're facing exactly the opposite, Steve, because it's clear that the Democrats in 2022 want to have tax increases. So that could lead to the ultimate stagflation.
Yeah, yes. The tax increases, a baseline tax increase, 15% worldwide on businesses so that nobody can just run away from their taxes in the United States if they're relying on us for their intellectual property rights protection and all these other things that the government backs up by sheer will or force of of our military or our law enforcement, but they get to skate on it and hide their corporate headquarters in the fucking Caymans, and we protect their very existence as American corporations in reality, but they're technically a multinational because they're on fucking Cyprus or some shit.
Yeah, because this is an important point you're making, David, and I think a lot of people miss this. It's not just the fact that we're increasing demand for goods and services with all this cheap money, but at the same time, they want to reduce the supply of goods. If you raise taxes on businesses and producers,
reduce the supply. Oh, I see. Because if we tax businesses, they're going to put out less stuff instead of increasing output so they can maintain their price point while they're competing with other companies in the same price point that are not in the United States or somewhere else or whatever, technologically speaking, or the fact that technology, which is the largest driving force economically in our country that moves as far as the value, is, wait for it, deflationary. Permanently deflationary. And if you don't believe me, go look at your key fob on your car versus your door key from 1979 that you would used to get in the door of the car. Remember that? Look at, does anybody still have a Lisa? You still walking around with a $5,000 computer with 128 fucking K in it? You know what? Here, I'll hang out, assholes. Since it's an old Nutrier grad. Whoops! Why did I freeze? I froze. That's fun. Just by taking my headphones off. Hold on. That was weird. What's happening? My software froze. That's weird. That's a first. Okay, now I'm back. That was fun. Hang out for 1 second. Since we have a Nutrier grad here, and apparently the Disney dad from 101 Dalmatians, I think. I want to show you guys something. I'm going to prove to you with a single image that technology is permanently deflationary. Okay? You ready? You ready for this? It's going to happen. Hold on. Will not take but a moment. I have used this example before. Here it is. This is it, folks. And anybody who went to Nutrier at the same time I did and hung out with me saw this. This is my first computer. The first computer my family ever had. This is the first generation Mac. It had 128K, no hard drive. That's it. The keyboard is attached with a telephone cable. Do you see what I'm saying? Now, let me show you something else. This, and by the way, I do have a boot disc for it. This is the mouse. This is the mouse we used to use. It was a lovely tan, computers used to be beige. I don't know if you remember that. But at one point, the future was beige. If you watch old sci-fi movies, it had a post-apocalyptic orange glow to it. So the idea was that the future would always be kind of sandy. It was like they were like trying to build these things so you could lose them once the earth ran out of water, right? And yeah, look at that. Look at this shit. The clicking. This is the trackball inside it, right there. There you go. And to clean it, because you had to clean it, you'd take the ball out like that, and you had to clean the little rollers in there. There's one. And there's another one. And if you didn't clean the rollers, it would get all gacked up, and you couldn't do anything. And it would just freeze up. Now you're like, your trackpad's running out of battery. That's what okay. It was basically a trackball, but on the floor like this. And there you go. And let me show you something. And this is what you would plug it into the computer with. This is the jack. And it was so nice because they let you know this is the mouse cable on it. See that? There's a little mouse image on it. It's a little picture of a mouse. And then a little picture of an apple. See that? Look at the Apple logo. That's high-tech shit. Yeah, it's an RS-232. That's right. This computer cost $3,200, not including the printer, which cost $1,000. Let me run. Okay, now let me show you something else. Hi, Chip. Hi. Look who just came in. All right, I'm giving an example. We're going to show and tell. Hi. This is the travel laptop that I use to do the show. This guy costs $1,200. It comes with a giant trackpad, its own screen in full color. It has Wi-Fi. And hi, buddy. You gonna jump up? Because you were clawing at my leg. This was $1,200 in today's money, which is supposedly worth less because there's more of it. Remember? Hi, come on up. You can do it. Ow! Ow! Oh, buddy, you're clawing me. Hold on. He's like, You're doing a show and you didn't even welcome me. So let me set. I got to set this down, buddy, where it won't fall over. There you go. That's all right. Okay. Hi, Chip. I was doing show and tell. I was trying to teach people about economics. I was trying to do that. Yes, $1,221. Right. Well, 2020 because I've had that one since last year. But you see what I'm getting at? And it's just that computer is amazing and I'm so lucky to have it. Thank you, Rob, for supporting, and all the patrons for supporting. And with that, I have access to the internet, which did not exist at all when I had that other computer. Everything I wanted to put on it had to come on discs. Oh, wait. Discs, you say? You want to see discs? Chip, let's go show them some discs. Let's go get some discs. We'll show them what's on there. It's like a time capsule, buddy. Hi. So, these are, oh yeah. Hi, you want to sit here for a second? These are the discs that I had to use. This is what the discs you look at that sweetness, huh? Should we go back through memory lane? These things were, what, $8 a piece? And they held about, what, 36K worth of memory? This is a high density one. So this one, let's see. This has got, okay. So here's some programs that I used to use. HyperCard. Anybody remember HyperCard? That was one of my earliest programming languages I started working in. When I worked for John Truby, the screenwriting teacher, the software he sold for his system was in HyperCard. So I got hired out of his class to be tech support for the thing because I knew how to write in HyperCard and I could fix problems. I met some of the most famous people in Hollywood in the early 90s because I had to go over there and fix their John Truby system on these kind of discs in HyperCard, or hook up their printer, which often happened. Here's an optimizer and a startup disk. Here's a piece of software called Correct Quotes. Oh, look. This has Adobe Gallery on it, but it used to have Macintax on it, which was one of the tax preparing softwares that I used when I didn't make enough money to even qualify for filing taxes. This was a Now Utilities disk that has a program called In Control in it. Don't tap the keyboard, silly. Norton Utilities. Look, Norton's been around that long. Look at that. Here's a screenplay that I wrote for Neufeld Ramey, Midnight. And here's Adobe Illustrator, the original version. This is on a Truby Storyline disc. I overwrote one of those. See that? That's Truby Storyline. That's his software. That's the stuff that's written in HyperCard. I had so many of these dead discs around that people didn't need that I used them for other stuff. This one, we don't know what's on and we're afraid. This was probably a prop from the net. Mind Your Own Business, which is bookkeeping software I was very convinced I was going to need. And I did not because I was a broke son of a bitch. It's Procom Pro. This was like to get to use bulletin boards online when that was for my Apple IIci. Yeah. So this is, can I, for the record, having like these kind of discs costing somewhere like $8 to $10. Oh, I remember Prodigy. $8 to $10 a piece. And then that computer costing $3,000 and the printer, which was a dot matrix printer, costing $1,000, and a laptop now that you could run your entire, like you can be a day trader from home on a laptop and be, if you have decent enough internet, you're as fast as anybody on Wall Street, period, end of story. Nothing like that even could possibly exist in 1982 when this shit happened. Am I a bit of a hoarder? No, I am not. That's special. That's not just rando junk. That's a big deal. Like still having that and the fact that it boots up, I'm very proud of. It's not like I'm surrounded by stacks of magazines that are, poisoning me with stuff. Hold on. And now, Mr. Man, I'm going to put my headphones back in. Do not attack. Chip. He's sitting in my lap right now. And he's going to attack my... Yep, he's going for it. Quit it. Quit it, you stinkums. You stinkums. Hi, buddy. Here you go. I'm going to sit like this. We'll get the big scratches. I mean, honestly. He's so cute. I remember how many people in this, and then I'll move on, because I'm so aggravated with these fucks. How many people remember seeing the introduction of these discs when Steve Jobs was at their Mac? I think they were at a version of CES or the equivalent at the time. It was happening in like a little stadium, and he took the disc out of the computer and flung it like a frisbee across the room. Somebody picked it up, walked it over, and stuck it in the computer, and it still worked. You remember that? Anybody remember that? Yeah. But a thing moved. Now I must kill it. That's right. Do you remember that? I want to see how many people in the chat actually remember that happening. Yeah, your PC. It wasn't a 525. This was the first time they used these smaller ones, the 425s. And when they took them out, you could throw them across the room. And that was the whole thing. Like, you had to be so fucking delicate with the old 5-inch, 5 1/4s. The 3.5s were great. And remember jazz discs? Oh my God, jazz discs. Oh, the zip discs were 100 megabytes and the jazz discs were 500. I've got a few of those floating around too. I have to find a drive that will open them, so it's pretty amazing. But the point I'm trying to make is these assholes are comparing the economy of the United States, how we make money, how we transfer money, how we work, how we go to work, how we create jobs, all that kind of shit, to a time before this disc. Not just before smartphones. Before this. Dude, you're getting a Dell. You see what I mean? What was that old computer program? Said stuff in caps like if and when. C+? I don't know. I mean, there were a couple of like TRS-80 had their own version, right? That's what I'm talking about. That's how full of shit these guys are. And I want you to have. Thank you, RJ. Bless you for the super chat. I appreciate that. And the artist formerly known as Craig. Thank you so much. I got cat hair in my nose. He's just sitting here calmly. Look at him. He's right there. Hey, buddy. Yeah. You're so sweet. You just come in here and you want to sit on my lap, and it's a lovely, lovely thing. Oh, we had a trash 80. Oh, the Bernoulli drives? Yeah, those were expensive and nice. That's what I'm trying to say. And it's not like they don't know. Both of these fuckers know. Both of these assholes have E-Trade accounts, and they've got financial advisors, and they dick around with both, and they know about all this stuff. But they're bullshitting you because they're talking about the modern economy the same way. It's like talking about farming before the invention of the fucking tractor. Lame.
They are going to produce less, right? If you tax something, you get less of it. And that means you're going to get potential.
No, it does not. They will look for other cost-cutting measures to make sure that they can get it to their to the people that they're selling it to. Quite frankly, it ends up zeroing it out. It ends up being a situation where the very same folks that are getting their wages going up pay slightly more for something, and that's the natural inflation that we see 2% over time, all the time anyways, which is caused exactly by that. People get a raise. People go, oh, they got a raise. Maybe I can get a raise. Well, if you want a raise, I got to sell this for more. All right, well, let's sell this for more. All right, I need a raise because the thing I bought now costs more. And it just ticks up. It's just artificial. It's why, whatever, it's 50,000 yen to buy a $500 television set in Japan. Do you think they're like, oh my God, I have to make 50,000 of those things? No, it's just a fucking word for it.
In 2022, this kind of...
Also, what does that even mean? The coming inflationary boom. Just fucking gibberish.
Witch's brew of higher demand, which increases prices, and lower supply of goods and services, and that is going to make inflation worse. But then you look at all these other factors in the economy. The debt.
Wait a minute, higher demand? You mean because people have more money in their pockets, and then the price goes up because they have more money in their pockets because but taxes are going to go up to pay for more stuff? You mean the natural growth of an economy in a first world country like ours? Fuck, this is dumb.
Going way up, the border being out of control, crime is a tax on the American people. All of these things seem to be going wrong to the American people. Yeah. That's why these polls are reflecting this unease that the country's.
Talk to me in 4 months, fucko.
Going in the right direction.
You know,
right
another
now.
thing is going, that's going wrong. I don't want to sound too much like Liz Warren, but income inequality is growing. We had income inequality shrinking under President Trump after the tax cuts, but now it is growing, and
that's because there were certain people during COVID that could still make a living, namely Amazon and the like, and they raced out ahead of everyone because they were unnaturally suited for an unnatural situation. So they gained a lot during that time. And people with their extra money are investing in companies that are going up or buying Bitcoin if they're fucking morons.
These big corporations, they're doing fine. I mean, the Apples and all of the pandemic stocks, if you will. But the small mom and pops, particularly when you add in these vaccine mandates and everything, they're going out of business.
Hey, fucko. They don't mom and pops aren't affected by vaccine mandates. It's only businesses with 100 or more employees. What kind of mom and pop are you talking about? Momandpop.com?
I haven't seen the current records, but anecdotally, you know.
No shit. There we go. If there's a better sentence that sums up this horse shit, I haven't seen the current records, but anecdotally, around Fox Business headquarters, in my own little bubble,
a lot of small businesses are not doing well. The big businesses are fine.
Dude, we lost permanently millions of small businesses last year. Are you complaining that during the pandemic, Trump lost more small businesses than at any point in history? Tens of millions of them went away, never to return? And now the complaint is that they're not growing fast enough compared to bigger companies? Like you give a fuck? By the way, you're now making him, look how he has a sad. He's going to have to defend he's going to have to act like he's upset by big businesses working.
Their market cap is going up, but the non-incorporated companies are not doing well at all.
The thing that worries me the most about the month or two ahead is whether we have a political panic like we did, in January and February, March of 2020 with respect to COVID. We should have learned the lesson by now, David, that lockdowns are completely ineffective. They actually exist.
What? Really? That's his worry? That we're going to have Omicron lockdowns and that's going to affect small businesses? What? Gibberish.
Exacerbated the problem of income inequality, as you just stated. And now we've got talk of closing down schools, closing down certain businesses. And isn't it interesting, David? It's always the small businesses that get shut down, but not the big guys.
Right.
What are you talking about? Of course big businesses got shut down. The big businesses are the ones with the actual mandates. The small businesses could stay open with fewer employees. What? Honest if I got, at this point, they're just speaking to say words. Look at his face. He's just filling time. I'm afraid we're going to be back where we were in January of 2020. Why? Because you think the president's going to come out and go, it's no big deal when it's horrible and it's 14 cases are going to wipe out the fucking country? 14 cases are going to lead to the deaths of almost 1 million people over time?
Hey, let me talk again. I mentioned briefly the tax cuts of the Trump era, of which you were a part of, and of course, Larry, a big part.
Yeah, individuals aren't a part of them anymore because that sunsetted. The big companies, though, the big corporations you were just talking about that were doing so well, Yeah, their tax cuts under Trump, permanent. Well, semi-permanent. Any president could come in and raise them, which is kind of what's going on, because that's really what we're doing. Aren't we really just doing that? We're going to, like, we were at, 20, and then they were going to go to 35. We went to 27. We're going to go to 24.
Of working in the administration. But first of all, most Americans did get a tax cut. The BS that you hear from the media that it was only the rich, that's just not true. Even the New York Times admitted it. They had a big story that, face it, you probably got a tax cut. They did that.
Face it, you probably got a tax cut. That sounds definitive. It's sort of anecdotal in its own way. Let's see. Face it. You probably got a tax cut. I have a sleeping cat on my left arm, so I'm typing with one hand. Here it is. 2019. Studies consistently find that the 2017 law cut taxes for most Americans. Most of them don't buy it. People don't believe it. Okay, if you're an American taxpayer, you probably got a tax cut last year. There's a good chance you don't believe it. Ever since Trump signed the Republican-sponsored tax bill in 2017, independent analysis have consistently found that a large majority of Americans would owe less because of the law. Preliminary data based on tax filings has shown the same. Yet at the first tax filing, taxpayers are skeptical. That's because people always think they should be paying less in taxes, especially Republicans. A survey conducted in early April by the online research found that just 40% of Americans believed they had received a tax cut under the law. Because about 40% had, just 20% were certain they had done so. That's consistent with previous polls because it didn't necessarily affect them equally. Mind the gap. This is the belief point, by the way. Mind the gap. They got a tax cut. They think they got a tax cut. So 64.8% of Americans got a tax cut. But only 39.6% of Americans think they got a tax cut. So the majority of people who got the tax cut think they got a tax cut. This group right here, whatever the fuck this is, got a tax cut and didn't know it or didn't factor in any major way. These folks from here over did not get a tax cut. Household income less than $30,000 got a tax cut. 32%. 32% of households with incomes of less than $30,000 got a tax cut, and almost that exact number think they got it. And, 30 to 50, 69% got a tax cut. 36% think they got it. And that's feeding this giant number up here. Oh boy, look at this number. 50 to 75, 81% of them got a tax cut. 86, more than 100,000, 89.5% of the people who make more than 100,000 got a tax cut. 89.9%. Half of them think they did, mainly because they couldn't write off all the other shit. Remember, this is not the public in general. This is people who make $75,000 to $100,000. 86% of them got a tax cut, according to this. Now, households with households with a change of less than $10 are counted as having no change. Fewer than 2% of low-income houses got a tax increase. Most saw no change. Fewer than 2%. All right. To a large degree, the gap between perception and reality on the tax cut appears close to a sustained and misleading effort by liberal opponents of the law to brand it as a broad middle-class tax increase. That effort began in the fall of 2017 when they declared the introduction. After the law went into effect, Democrats played down those estimates. Okay, this is the estimates of it. Could raise taxes on nearly a third of middle-class taxpayers. It continued through the signing of the law. The messaging stuck. That's the polling part. Tax cuts by the numbers. There it is. Tax policy estimates 65% of people paid less under the law, that just 6% paid more. The rest saw little change in their taxes. That's the part we were talking about earlier. How much less? Significantly so. And is the significant amount, again, a meaningful amount? If you're shaving $50 off somebody that makes $30,000 a year, or $100,000 off somebody who makes over $1 million, who gets to buy a house or an investment property with their tax cut? And by the way, if they use their tax cut to do it, can write off that cost 2 more cycles. So you just turn it into an investment rollover. That's why it benefited all the real estate folks specifically. More or less expert. Said last week, 2/3 of returning customers paid less in taxes this year than included. But yeah, because taxes were down on average in every state. How about wages? The vast majority of people did get a tax cut. HR likes to clear all along. Just now, we have real data to back that up. Why don't people believe it? Because it was an insignificant amount. It was only significant when you got up higher. That's why. Believe they got it and prove. Democrats, yeah, that's it. Independents, Republicans. That's because you're talking about the people. These are the folks who made people who 82% up here who approve of the tax, and the Republicans either believe they're in that top 100 plus, or are, or intend to be, and therefore don't want the government taking any money. So they approve of it even if they're not benefiting from it. That's the SALT tax, right? Blah blah blah. We saw the removal of that. You paid more in state taxes, not in federal taxes. That's what that's the back and forth. So
2019,
anyways, back to where we were.
65%, according to Tax Center policy studies.
By the way, in 2019, gas was $11 a gallon in California.
Got a tax cut, but more than that, it was the little guy who did better with the tax cuts than the big guys. And Kevin Hassett spoke to that point.
No, again, the minor tax cut a uber rich person gets on a percentage basis allows them to purchase rental properties and make another fucking chain of income across multiple tiers. No, none of us could shave off if you saved $1,000. I mean, that's what a phone costs these days. And now it's cheaper. But you know what I'm talking about.
He was here talking to Larry about a week ago. Let me just play that soundbite and get your final reaction. Roll tape.
Yeah, totally.
Our message was that income inequality would go down. It did. That wage growth would be more than $4,000 per family. It was actually about $6,000. We said that poverty would go down. About 4 million people left.
And by the way, the income inequality part from 2020 was factored in this year when you pay taxes or whatever. So they're just hiding from the fact that this giant leap in income inequality that they're talking about, like Tesla making a bunch of money and Amazon making a bunch of money and all these kind of things, all the companies that delivered things during the pandemic making a bunch of money compared to other places, and that other people lost their incomes entirely during the last year. They're just pretending that didn't exist. Again, same thing.
Poverty. We said that even like food stamp use would go down. It was down about 7 million folks came off of food stamps because the tax cuts stimulated the economy.
So the tax cuts
yeah. We'll deal with that later.
stimulated the economy, and as a result, income inequality that Warren and all the other Democrats are always complaining about shrunk. So it really helped the little guy more than the big guy.
Yeah, and yet wages didn't go up individually. So the income inequality came from bigger companies making less during Trump because of tariffs, shitty trade deals, and then of course COVID.
So everything that Kevin Hassett said in that interview was correct, and I just want to add one thing to what he said. David, guess what happened to tax payments by the rich after the Trump tax cuts?
Went up.
They went up.
Yeah.
It happens every time. Same thing on when Reagan cut taxes.
Yep.
Laffer has a great new study out.
The Laffer curve. Voodoo economics. Hi. Laffer's a joke. We'll talk about that later. Right.
Over the last 75 to 100 years, every time we've cut tax rates, tax payments by the rich go up, and every time we raise the tax rates, the tax payments by the rich go down because they find tax shelters. That's why raising this tax rate under BBB to 55% would be a disaster for the country. I think it would be a total catastrophe. We'd have the highest tax rates in the world. How are we going to compete with Japan and China and Germany and France and all these countries?
By the way, that isn't happening.
If we have the highest tax rate in the world, David, it makes no sense.
Yeah, but that's supply side nonsense, according to the mainstream media. I mean, right. Supply side doesn't.
No, supply side nonsense is what you were talking about by erasing 2020.
Work. I mean, it just helps the rich people. It's just incredible.
David,
go ahead.
David, did you see the data? I know you guys have reported on this at Fox, that where are all the people moving to? They're moving to the states with low income taxes in Texas and Florida and Utah and Montana. Yeah. I mean, taxes do affect people's behavior. Yeah. There's no doubt about it.
Absolutely. And don't forget.
And the prices there are going up, and one of the biggest jackups across the country in rents, for example, and in house prices is in those areas. So you're paying way more for a house in a strange area where you're not getting the same services you had because you decided to avoid the taxes. Meanwhile, you're going to be paying them in service fees because that's the part they don't get you on. They get you on.
See, that's where our friend Art Laffer is hanging out now.
Yeah, Tennessee.
All right, Steve. Thank you very much. Have a
Tennessee, where Biden's responsible for the biggest battery manufacturer in the world building a new factory there because the government is backing it, which I'm sure the Tennessee government and Marsha Blackburn and Laffer himself would totally support and wouldn't just call socialism while smoking cigars or some shit.
wonderful New Year, Steve. Great to see you. And Steve Moore.
Can I? By the way, just I have to say, one of the easiest dunkings I've ever done. We'll do the tax stuff later, because of the reality of what's going to be in BBB is just selling that thing.